All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone is enjoying their weekend and their Sunday. For today's video, we're going to cover the weekly watch list and get ready for a pretty massive week ahead of us. So, first things first, let's actually go over the economic calendar. Okay, so for this week, Monday, nothing really important. Tuesday, we do have flash PMI that's coming out at 9:45, so that is definitely something you want to be aware of. Right, if you take a trade within the first 15 minutes, you could see a little bit of volatility after your entry. Maybe you get stopped out on a false move, and then it continues in your desired direction. So within the first 15 minutes on Tuesday, definitely just kind of sit on hands and wait to see how the market digests the PMI data. Okay. Wednesday, we just have new home sales that comes out at about 10 a.m. So about 30 minutes from the open. Definitely something you want to be aware of as well. And then Thursday, big one is GDP. And that comes out about an hour before the market opens. So we'll definitely be able to view how the market reacts to GDP there. And then for the most part, Friday with PCE, that is, definitely the focus for this week, right? Because PCE generally is how the Fed gauges inflation. Okay, so PCE will definitely be important to keep an eye on for this week. So paired with this economic data, right, which for the most part every day besides Monday we do have something to be aware of and focus on. But paired with that, we have four major tech earnings reporting earnings, right? We have Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta this week. So pretty huge week, right? Last week we had Tesla and Netflix, right? Tesla started with a pretty major gap down, which is also testing key levels at this moment, which I'll cover in a little bit. And then Netflix as well, right? We had earnings, pretty strong earnings beat, right? Gapped up back over a 400 and has been basing above that 400 level for the last 2 days. So definitely want to keep on watch as well. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at the setups. So let's actually cover SPY and QQQ here. Okay, so SPY and QQQ are coming back into key support levels, and SPY is approaching this key support range, right, of about 420 all the way down to about 417, even like 415 there. So really important spot for SPY here. I'm gonna move that lower, kind of extend it here, right? And if we take a look, even extending this further, right, we can see that there's a lot of interaction in this range of, let's call it 415 up into 420. Okay, and we've seen a lot of interaction since 2022. Okay, since 2022, right, we've seen really volatile moves around this level, right? We end up holding it from January up until we broke it back in May. We got a back test of it back in June. We failed. We were able to break through back in August of 2022. Saw another significant move off of this range, tested it again, right, back in February of 2023, pulled back, consolidated there for about a month before getting a larger breakout, and now we're back into this key support zone. Okay, so huge area for SPY, right? We also have this uptrend that we're testing as well and slightly breaking at the moment. So definitely a huge spot for SPY, right? We're in a multi-day consolidation there from October 10th up into Wednesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mainly. Friday was kind of the big breakdown day that we saw last week. Looking at it on a shorter time frame of the 15 minutes, right? We really didn't see a whole lot of movement last week. There was definitely some volatility. It was kind of harder to play breakouts, harder to play breakdowns because there wasn't a whole lot of movement throughout the day, right? We didn't see a ton of momentum, even though there was a lot of intraday volatility, right? Even looking at Tuesday, we see a gap down push and then gave back most of the move. Wednesday gave back that whole move from Tuesday, right? Had these quick little tricky pops intraday, and then ended up selling off into the close. And then Thursday was just really kind of an absolute mess, right? We have this pullback, a bounce, volatility with Powell, a push, and then a sell-off into the close. And then Friday was probably the cleanest day out of the whole week last week. And then we ended up closing right at the lows. So we have a huge week ahead of us. right, with economic data and with major tech earnings. So really 420 is the line in the sand for more downside. Okay, if we can hold 420, then I do expect to see a slight bounce. I do expect it to be choppy if we hold 420, just because the market is waiting for GDP, it's waiting for PCE, it's waiting for the four big tech names that report earnings. So there's a lot that the market is waiting for, right, before making a larger move. And if the market is happy with GDP numbers and PCE numbers, then I do expect us to see a rally, right? But in this market, it's very fragile, right? We have a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East. We have a lot of stuff with inflation, with the Fed, earnings, right? Earnings is going to be big. So the market is very fragile. So if we have bad news, it is bad news. And even if we have good news, right, they can end up selling it off. So you definitely want to be patient. You want to wait for that intraday momentum, which we have been doing for this month. But being patient and waiting for that momentum is very, very important. So I don't really plan to take any trades within the first 15, 20 minutes, even 30 minutes, waiting for that market to give us some sort of intraday momentum, and then we act on it. Okay, we want to focus on the relative strength names. We want to focus on the names with catalysts, and approach the market that way. Okay, so big week. Be patient, but with SPY, the main level that we have to hold here is 420. Okay, if we lose 420, then puts will be in play. The last couple of days, we definitely saw some sellers, right? Selling volume, especially we have the highest volume in the last 2 days that we've seen really since March of 2023 when we ended up bottoming, right, basically at the start of the year. So huge volume the last few days. Let's see what happens at 420, but if we fail at 420, puts will be in play. Okay. Oops, let's go to QQQ here. All right, perfect. So QQQ, same kind of concept, but QQQ definitely has a wider range of support, right? If we take a look at the weekly, right, we really do see a bull flag, right? We don't have any sort of a breakdown yet, right? And we need under 354.20 to 350 to trigger that larger breakdown, okay? So on the weekly, right, it's still fairly constructive for a push, but it's really going to be about tech earnings, okay? And again, we have tech earnings on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, so a big week ahead of us, okay? But again, if we fail at 354.20 to 350 following tech earnings, then I expect us to see a multi-week breakdown really back towards this 334 support, which was the high of August of 2022. Okay, following this higher high breakout, we really haven't had any sort of a back test in this zone. Yes, we've seen a couple of pullbacks that have getting bought up, but we continue to make lower highs. Okay, so we're on the brink of making lower lows and seeing a larger breakdown. And again, we really don't have too much support in this range of 350 all the way down to 334. But if we do hold 334, then that's definitely an area that I would look to add longer term calls for a bounce play. Okay, only if the price action fits it. Okay, looking at an intraday, again, same thing with SPY. Closed right at the low, so very weak close. But this 354.20, 350 range will be key for QQQ to hold, or else we're going to see a larger breakdown. Okay. And then for calls, I do want to see this get back through 362. As long as we stay under 362, then I'm really focusing on the short side of things. I would look for a short-term bounce up towards 362, but I definitely would look to cover most of the longs if QQQ fails to reclaim 362. Okay, so puts under 354.20 this week and 350. Calls if it does hold early on in the week as the overall market waits for the data and waits for major tech earnings. All right, let's jump into the setups here. So Tesla, the main one we're looking at, failed inverse head and shoulders pattern there. So the main thing we're looking at with Tesla is this 212 support. Okay, huge area for Tesla. The last time we traded in from 212, we went all the way back up into about almost 280 before seeing a pullback. So huge bounce off of 212. And we're right back into the zone following earnings. We did close underneath it. So Tesla, if we get any sort of downside momentum, if SPY breaks that 420 mark, Tesla puts will definitely be a main focus for me. And I think this can go back to 200 before we see more buyers step up. All right, so I'm looking for 12 points of downside here on Tesla. if we continue to see the overall market weakness. Now for Tesla with this key support, it is going to be very important for SPY to fail at 420 to have that broader market weakness to help Tesla get the breakdown under 212. If the market holds, right, if we see a choppier day with SPY and QQQ, it is likely Tesla can hold this area, see a short-term bounce before breaking back under, right, potentially later in the week. So definitely one of the main focuses for this week in terms of downside continuation, but let's see what we act or how we act at 212 tomorrow. All right, AMD here definitely on watch for a pullback as well for a back test of 100. Last week, AMD spent most of the time trading in a range of 105 to 102, and last week we closed under 102 at 101.80. So I'm looking for a lower low here on AMD, and if it fails to reclaim 102 early on in the week, then it's very likely we see a back test of 100 before more buyers step up. We also broke out of this multi-month downtrend on Friday, October 6th, right, where we ended up seeing a push into 112, which is the key level for a breakout at this point. And then we pulled right back. So what this could be here with AMD, if we fail at 102 and we get a back test of 100, what this could be is a back test of this downtrend and a back test of a key psychological level of 100, where I definitely would consider going long off of, depending on, right, the conditions in the broader market. So definitely have a trade here with AMD this week. It's just going to be patient and waiting to see what the price action is and where the momentum is going. But under 102, I definitely do like puts for the back test at 100. And if we hold 100, I definitely would look for a short-term bounce off of that support. Alrighty, so NVIDIA here, pretty weak last week with the gap down following news. And NVIDIA is back into this key support area of about 410. So if NVIDIA fails at 410, then I do think it goes back into this support of about 403. And if we fail at 403, we're going to test 400. If NVIDIA fails at 400, okay, then we really don't have much support until about 380. Okay, NVIDIA on the daily also, we do have an inverse head and shoulders pattern here, right? So again, if it fails at 410, puts will be in play for a move into that 400 support. I would look for a short-term bounce at 400, but if it fails there, again, we have about 20 points of downside towards 380. So a lot of sellers last week. Right, week close there on Friday. So we'll see what this one does tomorrow at 410. But again, if it fails and we see the broader market fail as well, puts will be a focus. All right, so Meta is kind of the only name that I'm looking at with earnings for this week. I'll take a look at the other names, right? Amazon, Google, Microsoft post earnings, but Meta is definitely something that I'm interested in here for potentially more downside. So Meta, a couple weeks ago, we got that test of that higher high of 326.20. Tried to break through on Wednesday on October, but failed. We pulled back. We got a back test of that level on Wednesday, failed to get through, and then we made lower lows under 313 and 312. So we also tested that 307 support, which is big for Meta, and we did hold. So for this week, if we fail at 307, puts will be in play. Okay, we should be able to test 300. So I definitely would look at puts under 307 for a move back down into 300, and then at 300, right, potentially we look for a bounce play. But if we take puts early on in the week, I'll probably just wait until earnings on Wednesday before looking for calls. You're looking for any sort of trade following the puts. So keep an eye on 307. I'm mainly focusing on this for more downside. If it does reclaim 313 though, calls could be in play, but if we take a look at it intraday on Friday, we ended up pushing right up into 313, couldn't get through, and we ended up selling off into the close. One thing to note though, with Meta, comparing SPY and QQQ, Meta did hold the lows before the close, right? We had SPY and QQQ closing at the lows and making new lows on Friday before the market closed, but Meta was able to hold. So definitely something to keep on watch. I mean, if it does get through 313, calls could be in play, but it's not something that I would be aggressive with size. All right, so Roblox here is one that caught my eye. If you take a look at the daily and the weekly, right, it's holding fairly well. A big thing with Roblox is we did hold the support range of 25, and we ended up bouncing. So now we have a triple bottom at this 25 support, and we're setting up for a push. If we take a look back at the daily here, we have a higher low at the 30 support, which is huge. And on Thursday and Friday, I mean, Roblox held up extremely well while the overall market was pulling back. So we have this range of 32 to 32.50, which is the high from that earnings back in August. Okay, so 32.50 will be key for Roblox to get through. We have an inside day there on Friday, so if we can get any support of, any sort of strength with Roblox through 32, this will be an inside breakout, and it will also be a higher high on the daily. So if we get through 32, I do like calls first targeting 32.50, and if we can get through 32.50, then I expect Roblox to make a move back up into 34, and at 34, I would expect some sellers to come into play as that was a previous key support, and now it's likely to act as a key resistance again. So keep an eye on 32 for this week for that inside day breakout. All right, now shop here, we are in a multi-day / week consolidation. We tried to get through that high of 56 last week. We failed, and now we're right back into the support zone of 50.50. So if shop breaks 50.50, we do have 50 on deck. And if we fail at 50, it's likely we see another 2 points of downside before more buyers step up. Okay, so I really do like the setup on shop for downside continuation. As we look at the weekly here, we see 2 weeks of rejection and inverted hammer candles showing that there are more sellers in this range, and it's likely that we do break down. So keep an eye on 50.50 for this week and 50, and if we break that 50-cent range, more downside will be in play. Okay, needs back through 56.20 to see a larger breakout. All right, the next one here is coin. So coin, same kind of concept as shop, within a really tight consolidation on the daily and on the weekly in this range of 80 and 72. So for shop this week, it is holding fairly well, or sorry, coin for this week, it is holding fairly well, but if this fails at 72, puts will be in play for a move back down into 70, and if we fail at 70, we can go back into that key support of 64. Okay, if this continues to base above 72 though, and it gets back through 76, calls will be in play for a push back up into this 78 to 80 range, and then if it gets through 80, it has potentially 4 points of upside. Okay, so definitely a name to keep on watch in the coming days, right? And I do expect coin to make a larger move out of this range sometime soon. Okay, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be Tuesday, but it could be in 4 or 5 days, right? Or it could be in 2 weeks. Okay, so keep this one on watch. It is setting up. It does need time, but once it gets out of this range, we should see a pretty aggressive move there. All right, so covering some other names, Microsoft. For Microsoft, it's really important for this to hold 326.50. We did close slightly above that level on Friday. So if it fails to hold 326.50 this week, puts will be in play. We do have support at 322, so potentially 4.5 points of downside before earnings there on Tuesday. I'm probably just going to wait until earnings, and we'll look to trade this after Tuesday. Taking a look at Google. Google's kind of in a weird zone, so I'm going to wait for the same thing post Tuesday on that name. Amazon has earnings on Thursday this week, and Amazon is pulling back into the key support of 124. If it fails at 124, it can go to 120. So I would look at puts on this to start the week, but again, I'll probably just wait until it reports earnings. And then Microsoft here, sorry. And then yeah, Meta. And then Meta's a focus, right? Under 307 this week. So Amazon, Microsoft, Google, I'll probably just wait until they report earnings. I like the look of Meta a little bit more. I think we'll be able to find a decent trade. All right, so that is it for today's video. If you do have any questions, please let me know. But again, big week ahead, and we'll see what the market gives us. All right, hopefully we have some range. But if not, we'll approach the market the same way as we have, right? Being patient, waiting for that intraday momentum. All right. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. But I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Sunday. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Take care.